And all right, get myself all situated. Okay, so we're going to talk tonight about why you need a genuine personality brand. And I'm going to get into the difference of why I call it personality brand versus a personal brand in a little while. But essentially, we are living in a world where you need to stand out because nobody reads, attention spans are non-existent, and everybody is a self-proclaimed influencer. So I'm sure you've seen this quote from Oscar Wilde, but I just think it always bears repeating. There's a reason that everybody is individual. We all have something special to share with the world. And how do you figure out what that is and how much of it to bring to the table publicly? That's what we're going to talk about. So I'll give you a little bit of my background. I do call myself the Chief Personality Officer, and my company is More Than Words, which is, I call it a branding and copywriting consultancy. So what that means is that I help individuals and brands to develop their genuine personality brand, which means that you create content that sounds like you so that you're giving yourself space to be yourself in your messaging. And I like to say that while I can't pull a rabbit out of my hat, I can hone your brand message, engage your audience, and deadlift your employees, but not at the same time. And that I am available for office party tricks and accept payment in bottles of Bordeaux, or really any bottle of wine that begins with a B, or an M, or a C, or any other letter. So my background is I started out in television marketing. My first job was at ABC Daytime. I helped launch The View. And so, yeah, I'm really old. And I worked at all the soap operas. And essentially I took the job because I wanted to work for the director of on-air promotions, which meant I would be creating those like on-air promos for television. But I had a marketing boss who was the one that ended up giving me more content and more work to do and kind of took me under my wing. And we're still friends to this day. And so somehow I found myself in marketing, even though I went to school to be an art director, and just realized that I was a better writer than I was a designer. So after a long time bouncing around the television world, which like so many industries is super incestuous, you just go from one to another. I ended up at a word of mouth marketing agency. So I went from the business to business side to the business to consumer side. And that's kind of where I honed my voice, talking to different audiences, right? Because even if you're a business, you're still a person making a decision for that business. So you're still an audience, whether or not you're a consumer buying a product. Everybody is a human being who is looking at your message. And so that message needs to resonate with them no matter who they are or where they come from. And I like to also say that I'm a lover of wine, ice cream, and expletives. So I'll apologize in advance. There may be random cursing throughout the presentation. You have been warned, so I'm sorry if anybody gets offended, but it's part of my brand. So there you go. And just some of the companies that I've worked for, and I've done a lot of smaller brands as well, but they don't look as good on a PowerPoint. So we're going to talk personality. So here's the thing, because I worked in corporate for a really long time, and what I learned about most corporate jobs is that they want you to suppress who you are, right? It's not really explicit. Nobody tells you that, but when you get in the door, you realize that bringing more of your own individuality to the table is not valued. They really want you to toe that corporate line. They want you to just kind of nod your head and go along with things. And even if you're told to rock the boat, they don't really want you to rock the boat, right? So I couldn't figure this out. And for years, I was like, why can't I kind of move up the ranks? And I would move up a little, but always hit some stumbling blocks. And, you know, it finally dawned on me that the Danielle that I was at home with my friends and my family was the same Danielle that I brought to the office. Like, I was always very fortunate, I guess, that I felt comfortable bringing my whole self to work. But back then that was not valued. And so it ended up being a hindrance. And I didn't realize this until I went out on my own, that this is where so many people struggle. Because you're told to behave one way, you're told to suppress who you are, which doesn't allow you to really figure out your own message and your own voice. So what do I mean when I say personality brand, right? We all hear the talk about everybody needs a personal brand. So what does that mean? Well, when I say personality brand, this is what people think of. They think of like bearing your soul half naked for the whole world to see. But really, personality brand just means tapping into some part of yourself or your essence that you are comfortable sharing with the world because it's already on display, right? So something personal is private. So when people say personal brand, what are you sharing that's private? You don't have to share anything that's private. But our personality is inherent to what we are, to who we are. It's baked into who we are, and people are already seeing it. So how do you sort of elevate that to a line that you're comfortable with in order to create messaging that sounds like you, but doesn't make you uncomfortable that you've then shared too much with an audience? And so that's how I see this distinction, is bringing more of yourself that just feels natural and organic anyway, so that you're creating these stronger connections with people who are desperate for connection, because we're in a world where people really want to connect. And in order to connect, you need to know someone. And if you don't know them, you're not going to have a vested interest in them. You're not going to want to create relationships with them. You're certainly not going to trust them or want to buy from them or work with them. Right? So for a second, let's just take a quick break. And in the chat, tell me something about your own personality that you think you could bring into your message immediately. And this could be a hobby, this could be a favorite movie, a color, it could be like a style that you like, really anything that's sort of about you that you would feel comfortable sort of making part of your brand. And I can't see the chat, so someone will have to maybe tell me some of the cool things that are dropped into the chat. Drea, do you mind being the MC? You have to unmute yourself though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So I'll begin with myself. I really enjoy having like super girly. I've always been very like feminine, just ultra feminine. So you can see that in my page, but I could definitely extend that into the words. I wouldn't say that I necessarily put that into my copy. Like you could see it, but maybe there's like a disconnect there. So yeah, just overall, like I love like right here, perfect example, like pink. You know, I'm wearing all pink today.
I love it.
That's what it is.
Love it. What are some of the other ones?
So yeah, Yelly says, my inner style lives on the outside of me, full of color.
Yeah,
Totally,
sure.
totally see that. Ozzy says, orange hearts, fire element, creativity, which is so true.
Love that.
Laurel is a swing dancer and
Ooh,
fitness instructor, and she found people sometimes react to those things very interestingly.
I could see a lot with swing dancing. And I mean, the pole thing, we could talk about that, you know, because I could see that being a negative and a positive, but there's definitely ways to bring that in. I love that.
Jennifer, a glass half full always and positive.
I love that. Optimistic. Great.
And you inspired Yelly to rewrite the bio and include love for color in it.
Yay. Awesome. And we're not even done yet. All right. Very cool. All right. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. So let's move on. And we're going to talk about why your personality matters, right? So here, the world we live in, right? Where landscapes are super cluttered, right? We're overwhelmed with messaging everywhere we turn. Our attention spans are essentially non-existent, right? And there's this backlash that nobody reads, right? Why even put messaging out? Because nobody reads. Obviously not true. Plenty of people read, but they're going to read things that they can relate to, right? So what happens? You have to be human, right? Your messaging, whether or not you're a solopreneur, whether or not you're looking for a job, whether or not you work at an organization, your own humanity is a chance for you to shine and add value, right? In the day that we're living in now, fitting in is extremely generic, right? Versus the corporate days when fitting in was what you should be. Now fitting in is basically a way of saying that you're not going to get anybody's notice and you're not going to be able to express yourself. And it's going to hinder your own ability to tap into your messaging. So I want everyone to go all in on you, and don't butt yourself. Don't be like, well, I could do this, but that. No, we're going to play the improv game. Everything is yes and. I could do that, and I could do that, right? So don't butt yourself. Don't put limits on yourself. You want to be genuine, real, and human. And again, I'm not saying put everything out there that's super private. Don't make yourself feel uncomfortable, but don't second guess it. If something feels inherently natural to you, chances are that is a sign that that is something that you should be sharing with the world. Okay. Again, people do business with people, right? Your content needs to humanize you and make you relatable so that you become a fully realized person and not just words on a page. And I'm going to show you, a lot of examples at the end here that show the difference between profiles and about pages that are written in one way and then what happens when you write them as if you're a human being. So in order to write messaging, you need to be clear on who you are, right? We can't have confidence if we don't know what we stand for, right? So when you know who you are and you know who your audience is and you know what they need, it's usually pretty easy to message because you have a directive, right? You're confident in who you are, you know the kinds of people you're trying to reach, and you know their pain points, right? Or what they need. So the amount of time that recruiters look at a LinkedIn page if you're looking for a job is 7 seconds. This is true. That's how long they scan a resume or a LinkedIn page. So if your resume or your bio starts out with words, which we're going to get into, that are like veteran, experienced, savvy, or seasoned, they're going to move on, right? You need to grab their attention immediately. And how can you do that in a way that, again, just speaks to the genuineness of who you are? The second most visited website page on any website is the About page, because we do business with people that we like and we want to know who you are first and what you do second. There will never be a case where somebody does business with someone without first reading all about them, and they're looking for something. Yes, they want to know your background, they want to know your expertise, but they're looking for something they can sink their teeth into. They're looking for something that makes you a conversation starter. Like it's like a date, right? Anything that they can give you or that you can give your audience that lets them start a conversation with you helps to develop that relationship, right? So how do we stand out? Release the generic, right? Veteran, seasoned, experienced, savvy. Like I'm already asleep. If you put any of these words on your bio, take them off immediately. What you want to do is shift the focus. So you're talking about yourself, but you're also serving your audience, right? So your message needs to address their pain points. Show them that you know what they need before they know what they need, right? So there's ways to reframe anything that we do, right? I could say I'm a copywriter, but what I really do is drive communication between audiences and brands, or help people communicate in a way that is relatable to, to their audience. You could say, oh, I'm really an art director, but what I really do is bring images to life, right? There's other ways to think about what is the struggle for your client or your audience and focus more on the pain point, because then it demonstrates what it's going to be like for them to work with you, that you're already thinking about their audience more than you're thinking about yourself. Right? So where do you want to start? Right? So again, where is your line? Right? So where is that line between what you're comfortable sharing and what you're not comfortable sharing? And ways to do this is you can ask your friends or your family to give you some words that describe you. Email 5, 6, 7, 10 people and just say, hey, I'm working on my bio. Can you send me 5 words that you think of when you think of me? And I guarantee that there will be crossover there. The things that they talk about that describe you are probably things that you don't even realize about yourself. And chances are one of those could be either your distinction or something that focuses on how you serve your audience, right? If everybody talks about how considerate you are, or how you're always willing to chip in, or how you go above and beyond, like all of these things are ways for you to convey to your audience that you're going to do the best job for them. And then if you're really stuck, you're like, oh, I don't know, there's just nothing that I can think of. What's your favorite hobby, right? Do you play a sport? Do you knit? Do you have a ton of cats or dogs? Do you like to wear a certain color, right? Is there a movie that you're obsessed with, or a catchphrase? Anything. I mean, literally anything, because chances are if something is something to you, it's going to be something to someone else. And they're just looking for what that is, right? So my bio, I talk about wine, I talk about CrossFit. Almost every conversation I have with clients, they reference the wine, and they tell me the wine that they like. And it's an icebreaker, and then we're instantly bonding. And then I can talk about how I want to move to Italy one day and grow my own grapes. And then before you know it, you're like best friends with someone and you haven't even talked about the work. And, we're building relationships here. So the more you can give someone that just shows the person at the other end of the computer or the phone, the easier it's going to be to just sort of take down those walls. And it doesn't mean you're not professional. It just means you're human, right? And I think, again, when you're starting to write about yourself, because it's really hard, go try to push it. It's always easy to dial it back versus push forward. So if you can really write something, even if it makes you a little uncomfortable, try to put it out there, and then you can edit it down and say, oh, I don't know if I want to use that word, or this makes me sound a certain way. But try to have more fun with it first, and then dial it back. Another huge mistake that I see a lot on people's LinkedIn profiles or your about page on your website is write in the first person, right? It is not Danielle is this. It's I blah, 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 right? This is my profile. This is my business. You're writing from yourself. And I think that's really important. And again, it just creates more humanity when you write about yourself in the third person, unless you're at a huge organization and there's like a specific guideline or it's whatever. But again, you want people to think that you're talking to them and you're introducing yourself to them. And then another great tip is, if you're really struggling, if you find that your writing is very stiff and, when you're trying to put something out there, you just feel like you can't be yourself, forget that you're writing to a potential client or your audience, and sit down and pretend like you're writing about yourself to a friend or someone in your family. And think about how you would write that if it was just an email. Like, what kind of slang would you use? How would you start it? And it just takes all the pressure off, because there's already an established relationship with this person, which allows you to be more you and stop thinking about, well, what if they think this or what if they think that? Nobody's going to think anything, because you're going to be writing as if you are really good friends with this person. And then the last thing is, I have a downloadable, which I'll share later, called About Me Mad Libs. And it's essentially Mad Libs that allow you to build your about page. So most people, the struggle is, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to talk about myself. So what I've done is I've basically given you like a whole dialogue where you can tell your story about your business and about your successes. And for every prompt, I give you sort of 2 serious prompts and 1 more fun prompt. And it just lets you kind of see where you're willing to have more fun with yourself and the way you write about yourself. And a lot of my clients say it's actually way harder than they think, but I make them do it at least twice. Because again, the first time you're going to be stilted, it's going to be like nerve-wracking. And then by the second time, you're just having fun and you're just making things up. And you're saying like, for a gazillion years, I've been doing this, this, and this, as opposed to for 10 years, I've spent time in. So again, just more ways to just kind of lighten up and have some fun. I see lots of stuff. Is there anything in the chat that I need to be addressing right now, Andrea? No. Okay, good. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to take you guys through a bunch of examples now. These are real examples that I found on LinkedIn and on people's about pages. And then some of them I rewrote, and then some of them I think are really good examples. So this is truly somebody's about section. I changed her name and the name of the company to spare the innocent. But you'll see it opens up with Sally Shapiro as CEO of Shapiro Event Staffing. Again, they would already know that because your name's at the top of your LinkedIn page and as well as your company, so you don't need to say that. They specialize in high-end wait staff for events, right? And they provide waiters, bartenders, blah, blah, blah. If a company, not if your company, if a company, so again, you've immediately created a disconnect, is looking to outsource their staff, we can accommodate both short-term and long-term requests, right? So there's so many things wrong with this. First of all, it's really boring. I always say if you can take something like a bio or an about page, and if you change out your name or the company name and it doesn't matter, then it is not personal, right? You haven't created that level of distinction. We can put anybody's name here, any event staffing company, and it wouldn't matter. However, if we spice it up a bit, are you ready to party? As a young girl, I never met a dance floor I didn't like. In fact, my yearbook named me most likely to crash a wedding. That's why I founded Shapiro Event Staffing. I'm always up for a good time, but more importantly, I know you can't have fun if your event isn't run right. Whether it's your wedding day, anniversary, blah, 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 we provide the people and the peace of mind you need to ensure that the only thing people talk about the next day is how much fun they had, right? So to me, I mean, jumps off the page, immediately you want to work with this person. They're fun, but she gets it, right? She's not just fun and you're like, oh, I can't take her seriously. She understands the importance of running an event right. She talks about providing peace of mind and that you don't want people talking about anything bad, just how much fun they had. So, right, she's addressing the client pain points. She's making it personal, and she's created that level of distinction, right? The first line, are you ready to party? Who's not going to read that, right? She just sounds engaging and fun and somebody that you want to get on the phone with and somebody who you want to throw an event because events are meant to be fun. So then we have a generic about section also taken from somebody's website. Again, I changed names, but staying on top of changing technology. Tech company continues to offer a complete range of services, including blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's just, this is just literally a laundry list of things that they do. They get into a little bit of the owner, right? Donna, she's well known. She provides strategic solutions, such as analysis. I mean, my eyes are glazing over. There's so much jargon here that nobody's going to look at this. And while, yes, there's a lot of keywords here, and so maybe you might get some traffic, I always say that just because somebody comes to your website doesn't mean they're going to read your website, doesn't mean they're going to stay on your website, and doesn't mean they're going to get engaged with your website. So what can you do, right? She's still a tech company. So we don't want to we can't do partying, right? She's not an event company. So you have to know your audience and you have to know the type of person that this is. Obviously, this is a tech expert. You know, she's a little more conservative, so she's not going to be too much out there. However, what you could say is you don't have time to keep up with technology because you're too busy running your business. That's where we come in. Right? We've been serving our customers with all aspects of their services, right? And then you bullet it so it still shows all the different things, right? And then meet Donna, one of the only women in her engineering program. Donna understands what it takes to build a business from the ground up and all the adversity associated with it. In other words, she's kind of a unicorn. Donna can rebuild your mainframe from the ground up with one hand tied behind her back. So again, we're just using words like you, right? So you're talking directly to your audience and addressing their pain points, right? You don't have time to keep with technology. We're giving Donna a personality and we're making her super relatable, right? She's obviously really smart if she was the only woman in her program, but she's obviously fought to build a business, which means she's going to work freaking hard if I want to hire her. And it means she knows what she's doing, right? So there's, you know, ways that you can play with this that, again, we haven't said anything about Donna that's going to make her uncomfortable. There's nothing private here. There's nothing overly personal. You know, the most fun we've had is that we called her a unicorn, which is a tech term, right? So it's kind of, you know, a little bit on brand as well for tech, but it doesn't give away the farm and it doesn't make her feel like she's done anything that's uncomfortable for her with her clients, right? Because she still wants to present this different level of expertise and professionality. Okay, so here's another bio about page. And so this is Anne. She's the creator of Salt and Caramel, which is a store, an Etsy store, right? She always wanted to make people feel loved. And while I began my adult life as anything but typical, This is really long, right? This huge long parentheses. I've always had a crafty artist inside. She creates wall hangings, which makes me excited. It's the best cup of coffee I can have, right? And so this is, it's long, but it gives you a sense of who she is as a person. And it also gives you a sense of like who she is when she's not making her wall hangings, right? So when she's not helping brands, she's not weaving into wall hanging. You can find her upside down trying yoga, sipping on a park bench, rifling through flea markets. Again, all these things that somebody can like read and align themselves with, right? They could be like, oh my God, I love going to flea markets, or I don't know what a playa pup is, but like somebody's going to know what that is, right? So just anything that you can do that just sort of brings more of your essence home. And, she's got an Etsy store. It's a different kind of vibe, but she's also a former scientist who's now a designer, right? So kind of marrying those two things. So here's an about page. It's a little too much about someone. That's very long, right? So I'm not going to read all of it. I'll just kind of skim, but like she basically is telling her life story. And this is only 3 of the 9 paragraphs that are on her about page. So she talks about growing up in Germany. Her family's self-sufficient. She talks about her grandfather and her grandmother. They had cows. They ate farm to table. I mean, it's interesting, but you have to also understand like who's reading this. Like we're 3 paragraphs in and she's only up to the summer she turned 14. So they're sharing and then they're sharing. So we kind of condensed it and made it just enough about her. So first of all, we broke up the chunks of the copy and we bolded the top sentence of each one. So even if somebody just wanted to read those 3 things, for me, food is life, represents the sum of our needs and dreams. I help communicate the love, passion, and craft that goes into every project. Even if somebody just took away those 3 things, they're getting a little bit of sense about her. So she's a food photographer, which you would know because it's on her website, right? But it's like we're still leaving some of her story in. We still talk about growing up in Germany. We're talking about love of food and culture, how she brings this different approach from raising her own family, and then she gets into her expertise. Again, there's no saying you can't talk about all the great things that you've done. Like she's worked with like amazing directors and publishers and all of these things, but you just do it in a way that's very digestible and very personal. And each paragraph really hammers home something that she wants to talk about. Okay. So here's another LinkedIn page, which is what I say, not enough you, right? So this is somebody, karate and communications means discipline, focus, and execution. Okay, I mean the karate, fine, but what does this mean? Counselor and trusted advisor across the spectrum of business-oriented communications. No idea what that means, like none. That's just, could be anything. Key tenets, data, insight, empathy, are required to drive precise business. I mean, it's just so many words. There's so much jargon here that you don't even know what this person does, right? And then they're like, I was an Eagle Scout. Okay, what? Great. The whole thing, first of all these ellipses, no. I mean, this is almost one endless paragraph. Nobody's reading this. But how do you make it just about you? So, I rearranged the order. So this is the same person. We're going to skip to this one, and this is his about page. Right? So again, you can kind of have a little fun with it, like what you care about. For 30 years, he honed his skills in communications consulting, right? Again, he's owning that. What does that mean, right? I have a focused work ethic, and my clients tell me I'm resourceful. The obligatory stuff, prior to founding his communications company, he did all these things, right? I was an Eagle Scout and proud of it. The reason I do this, I retired from corporate to start my company and took advice from my daughter. And he talks about throwing out his black socks, and she bought him all these fun socks, and now that's sort of his thing. And he never goes a day without rocking a pair of socks, right? So again, more humanity, but we're just getting to the point and we're making it engaging. And he's kind of mocking it, right? So he's saying like, you care about how long I've done it. Here's the obligatory stuff that I have to put here because it's my about page, but this is the real reason that I do this. And again, this gives him something to talk about when people call him. And then this one also, I just love, another about page. This is the owner of a company, right? I don't know, I just work here. Amazing. Ringleader, head honcho, top cat, take your pick. right? After spending too many years in the corporate world, Lorraine was tired of bureaucracy. Now this is a company page, so they're each written in third person. I feel like it should be first person, but I'm not going to shame her for this. I love it. The sameness and the bad coffee, right? Instead of forcing herself to fit inside a square hole, she founded Round Peg. Like that's the name of her company, which is just genius. And she's now assembled a band of talented misfits with the same goals, belief in strategy, and love of cats, right? She walks the line between professional and maverick. The Monon is in, I believe, Cleveland. I think it's Cleveland, Ohio. It's like a famous, it's basically like our Highline is their Monon. She functions on a diet of Italian food and art, right? It's like really fun, but like you can tell she knows what she's doing. She's obviously into design. She's obviously into writing, and she's a marketing strategist. So I just love the sort of combination of like being willing to sort of mock herself for being the head of the company. But she makes herself relatable, right? This is not a CEO that you're going to be remotely intimidated to talk to. So hold on. Okay. I think, is that it? Oh. So yeah, so that's kind of, I know I feel like I zipped through that, although it's 5:45, which is what Drea told me I kind of had to wrap it up by. So just a couple more things. I am doing a workshop on October 13th. It's a 2-part, 2-hour workshop where I'm going to help you build your own about page or LinkedIn page. And it's going to be really small and intimate. So if you're interested in that, it's on my website, and I've created a promo code for anyone from the co to get 10% off. And here's all the places that you can find me. You can go to my website, and if you sign up for my newsletter, that's where you can get the About Me Mad Libs, and you can build your own about page, and it's really fun. People have done really amazing things with it. And again, it doesn't have to be prescriptive. It's just a way to kind of break yourself out of your rut of how you talk about yourself. You can follow me on Instagram. I mean, these days I'm mostly just posting a lot of stuff that's against the president, but I also do promote my work sometimes. And obviously LinkedIn for sure, please connect with me, and then you can always email me. And I'm gonna stop sharing so that I can answer any questions.
Thank you so much. That was so great. I feel like I need to look at everything I ever wrote about myself and do it in a good way. In a good way. I'll tackle it way better this time. The one thing I did do right was first person. I have done that. That was the only thing.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a huge, it's like it makes it such a big difference when you change it from third person to first person and the way people respond to you.
So we're going to jump into these questions because they're awesome. So Yeli, our co-founder, says, would you be scared of writing a bio that is too unique? Will less people connect, or will more of the right people connect?
I love this question. So I say that if you're not repelling certain people, then you're doing it wrong. So I think the more you can be authentic to you and the more you can own who you are, then you're basically self-vetting people that want to work with you, because nobody's going to come to your page and then call you that doesn't already know what they're getting into, right? So the more you can lean into that, the more you're going to attract the right people. So yeah, you're going to repel people, but those are probably not going to be the right clients for you anyway, or it's going to be a bad fit, or it's going to be uncomfortable. So I think that the more you go the other way, the more likely you are. You're going to have less, but they're going to be higher quality, and chances are they're going to be longer term. So when I redid my website and I went all in on my messaging, it is so rare now that anybody reaches out to me that's not a fit. Now, it doesn't mean you get every job, obviously, but they already know who I am. They know what they're getting. It's not a surprise when we get on the phone and 5 minutes in, we're like shooting the shit and like pretending like we're buds, because that's what they expect, because that's the kind of like ethos that I've created. So, you know, it's almost more honest to be more you, because then you don't have to pretend, and you don't have to think, oh, what are they thinking about what I wrote, or what can I not say, or what can I not do? I mean, I show up, I'm in my workout clothes 9 times out of 10. Laurel knows, she's seen me. I'm like, I literally and I own it. I'm like, I'm sweaty. I haven't showered today. No one cares, because they want to see that you're human, and they're hiring you for what you can do. right? And then they just want to know that you can have some sort of relationship with them.
Yeah, that's a great response. It's good. Another takeaway that goes into that is it's okay to be human. That was
It's
one of the notes I
encouraged. It's
wrote. Yeah,
encouraged.
which is
Yeah.
which is hard on LinkedIn the most because I want to be my most professional self, but maybe it's a balance. It's all about that balance, like you showed in the examples. You have to be a human that's has professional qualities, right? But not like 100% robotic.
And I think there's a difference between professional and formal. And I would argue that all of those examples I showed are 100% professional. They just have personality, right? So professional doesn't mean boring. It just means polished, but you can be polished and still let your personality shine. And I think that's what holds, I think that's where so many people get confused and they think, oh, it's not professional. Like, being a person is being professional. It's how do you convey that, right? Like, obviously, if you have a typo or if you're saying something inappropriate, maybe that's not professional. But if you can show your expertise and also show who you are as a person, I mean, what's more professional than that?
Right. That actually segues into another one of Yeli's questions. When does getting unique get too informal?
I mean, I think, yeah, it's kind of like what I said. I think if you're so unique that you are kind of forgetting like proper English or be trying to be too hip or too, like, you don't want to go the other side either, right? So there's as unique as you are, but you don't want to go so far over to one side that you become unrelatable because you have like tried to be unique for the sake of being unique, right? So this is about showing enough of yourself to define yourself as a full person. It doesn't mean you need to go everything and all in and all of that. And so I think, you know, again, it goes back to just writing a proper description in English with the right grammar. And again, you can have a little fun and you can play around with cadence, but I think unique becomes too unique if you get sloppy.
Okay.
Right. And again, if like that thing that I showed the example with all the ellipses where it's like, yeah, he was kind of unique in that description, but like, who's going to read that? Like it's not enjoyable. It wasn't anything that was going to like hold somebody's attention. So he was unique in that he didn't want to use any punctuation. I would say please use punctuation. It is your friend. This is not a text message, right? You still have to put periods and commas and things like that. So
That goes into our typography lesson that we had the middle of September. Is the similarities between that lesson and this one is readability,
mm,
because the readability, when a font face, can be easily legible. And then what I saw with your examples was the bold, the bullet points, just very succinct paragraphs, like definitely looked way easier to read and scan your way rather than like what the original one was.
yes, I think scannability and skimmability is huge, especially on the web. Bullets are your friends, subheads are your friends, because you have to assume that even though people will read things that resonate with them, a lot of people are going to scan and you want to just give them enough. The scanning is what gets them interested. So if your headline is compelling and they see something that resonates, they're more likely to then read what follows. But if you just have a chunk of copy there, they're more likely to skim over the whole thing and not read it at all.
Right, right. That's there's so many ways that writing has changed compared to when people were writing for, print. Print, as a writer, the way I was taught to write for print is excessively different than what I'm writing now digitally. So
100%.
people are reading differently, generations are reading differently, and we have to adapt as writers on how do we get our point across better, because it's dramatically different. Uh, what Issa said in her presentation was 60 characters maximum in each paragraph, which is not a lot. Like that's
Oof.
actually very short.
Yeah, it is very
Um,
short.
uh, but just all of those like little takeaways on how to actually get your point across, without being too wordy. So that's I think just fascinating, the crossovers there. We do have some more questions. We have Yelly again. How did you come up with the Mad Libs idea? And she said, "This is so signature you and so smart."
Thank you. I have no idea, honestly. Like, I don't know. I knew I wanted like some sort of freebie for my website when I was launching it. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know if I was doing something or I saw something, but I just realized that people struggled with this, like where to start. And I thought, like, what if I make it fun for you to tell your story? And I think I just loved Mad Libs as a kid. And yeah, I wish I could remember the like exact moment. But the minute I had the idea, I was like, oh, this is it. So, and then I did a follow up. I did a quarantine Mad Libs too, which was more just like people writing about like what they've been up to during quarantine. I should go back and look and see if it's dated by now. But yeah, like I said, I was trying to address the pain point, right? Which is, how do I even start talking about myself? Where do I even begin? And how do I give people permission to like lighten up? And I thought, if I give them like a fun prompt, it's going to be more likely that they can kind of see ways that they can have a little more fun with their descriptions.
Yeah, it really is brilliant, especially because the hardest part is starting. So once you start to plug in the words, you get on a roll, you get in that flow. That's awesome. Props to you for thinking of that. That's definitely a divine insight of ways to help people, because it's tough. It's tough, especially pulling it out of somebody that's not usually a writer. So we have another question. How do you adjust writing to be most accessible for everyone, including people with handicaps and learning disabilities?
So I'm not an accessibility writer, so it's a whole different skill set. And I know that there's accessibility designers. I try to do my best when I'm writing to think about like the bolding, the bullets, things are going to be easier. I definitely work with my clients on legibility when it comes to, I mean, most of that tends to be design based as opposed to actual content, but also the design of the content, right? So are things big enough on the page? Is the message there? You know, I had a client recently who's redoing their website, and he redesigned it, and I'm like, this is like, there's so much going on, like it's like flashing and there's animation, and I'm like, I'm like, this is going to be so difficult, and it's for like an eye exam kind of thing, and I was like, you're literally advertising something to do with the eyes, and I can't even look at this page. um, so I think that's probably more of a design question than a copy question, but I know that there's people that are certified in accessibility. There's courses you can take. A lot of it has to do with colors, and like I said, like animations and things like that. But I think dark type on a light background where you have, chunks of copy makes it easier for people, and making it a big enough size so that it's legible.
Yeah, that's awesome. It reminded me of an acronym I learned while in school. So it's a way to make sure you're hitting all the points. So so from start to finish. So like in storytelling. So you start with A, which is attention, I, interest, D, which is desire, and A is action, that call to action at the end. So do you think that this could be applied to a bio as well?
Absolutely, right? Attention, meaning like the headline, right? Or the first sentence, right? Like that party example, right? Of the girl who likes to party, like you're gonna read that, right? That draws you in. And then what's the second one? Information?
Interest. So to
Interest.
generate like, I guess those interesting facts about
Yep,
yourself.
absolutely. Like, so again, that's part of your personality brand. Like, what is that hook that's gonna get somebody to like resonate with your message, right? Then D was, what was
Oh,
D?
desire. So maybe like the desire to work with you. So things that you've done, accomplishments, things like that. Yeah, just you gotta gloat a little bit in your bio.
Absolutely. So desire could be your accomplishments. It could also be addressing their pain points, right? So their desire to work with you might be because you're going to take care of everything for them and you're going to put on this amazing event, right? And then the call to action is obviously whatever it is, right? And, you know, a bio might not have a call to action, or it might be like, I'd love to work with you, let's chat, or, you know, it just depends on where the situation is. But I love that. I can definitely see that that would be a really relevant format for building your story. And it doesn't necessarily even need to go in that order, but making sure that all of those things are included could be really powerful.
Laurel has a question. So, how do you handle clients like the one you described when they make decisions that aren't going to work for what they want to accomplish with their brand? Sometimes we've had the experience of the client micromanaging our process and wanting to inject ineffective ideas or words.
So I think, you know, there's only so much you can do, right? At the end of the day, it's their stuff. But I think as the person that they've hired, it's our job to say, in my experience, and what I would recommend is this. If you choose to do X, Y, and Z, I can't guarantee that you're going to get the same results. So I always try to come at it that way. I also feel like, you know, obviously part of my brand is like I'm pretty direct. So I will pretty much tell a client, like I told the client, client the other day, I'm like, you can't do this. I'm like, no one's going to read your message. You're looking for all this seed money. No one's going to invest. And they have an amazing, ingenious product. And I was like, simple, elegant. I'm like, you know, you just need to take it down a notch. You know, I think you have to know, and again, it's all about how you deliver it. Like, this is someone I know, so I can be a little bit more direct, but I think it's our jobs as the person who's putting this out to say, like, I don't really want to put my name on something like this. This is something that's going to muddle your message or detract from your message or is off brand, right? If they have brand guidelines, if we've created brand guidelines for them, that's always easy to go back to that and say, per your brand guidelines or per your content pillars, this is not something that we're going to talk about. And if you do, it's going to be off brand. So I just think you have to assert yourself. And look, if they don't want to listen, we've all been there. You're just going to be like, okay, like, pay me and have a good day. And then you'll never work with them again.
Right. That's what it is. That's what it is sometimes. But those are great experiences because it does make me realize where I align. So even though those experiences aren't like the best, like I'm not hoping for that, when I have encountered it, it's like, okay, now I know who I am a little bit more, like as a creator. I know that I don't want to go there, you know? So everything is an experience we can learn from. One quick question from our graphic designer Ozzy, please explain what a content pillar is.
Oh, so typically when you create like a brand strategy for a client, it's what are they going to message around? So if they're going to put out content, like if they're going to have a blog or they're going to put out a newsletter or anything like that, it's what are the things that are in line with their brand and their brand vision. And usually it's like 4 to 5 different things. So your content pillars might be, we only talk about lifestyle, money, health, wellness, and anything outside of that would not be considered part of their brand. And this is self-defined by either you as your own designer, right? So if you're a designer and you're passionate about certain things, you could say my content pillars are going to be these 3 subjects around these things that are really important to me, and you're not going to deviate from that. So it makes it really easy for you to create content because you always know the topics that you want to stick with. And then it also creates consistency so that people see that you're constantly talking about the same thing. So yeah, those are content pillars.
Ozzy had a follow-up
Yeah.
question. What are yours, wine, and?
So I mean, my content pillar is really personality brand. And everything that I write about goes back to that, like being authentic in your message. So my personality brand is wine and CrossFit and, you know, fun stuff like that. But I would say I only have one content pillar, and that is authenticity around your brand and your brand message. I probably could expand that one day, but pretty much everything I write ties back to that one thing. And then I just deviate in how I kind of talk about it. So it doesn't seem like I'm constantly saying the same thing.
That's smart. That's smart, because then people do look to you as the as an authority figure on that subject. When you keep talking about that and you show time and time again that you know what you're talking about, I mean, then you're that go-to person, which is always ideal when you're selling a service like that. So it totally makes sense. I don't think you have to have a lot of content pillars. I have seen brands expand the topics that their content pillar has. So now more brands are talking about sustainability. And so
Yes.
that's one of their content pillars. Or politics. I've seen a lot more brands have political views when
Right. Social justice. Exactly. Yep.
it's very interesting to see those content pillars really shift and bring more personality to those products, because they are just products, but then there is this personality that's tied to them, like the kind of person you are for purchasing that, which is huge. That's really what the words are building.
100%. And I think also we think, God, I'm so sick. Like I get to a point where sometimes I'm like, God, I'm so sick about talking about this. But like, you have to remember that like people are not exposed to your message as much as you think they are, right? So while you are like, I'm sick of myself already and I'm sick of talking about this, you realize that you're just getting it out to more people. And then you do sort of become known for this thing that you didn't even know was a thing. And that goes back to the whole cluttered landscape, right? You can post the same thing on all your platforms for weeks and weeks and weeks, and very small people are going to see it. And then, those people might see it, but then like forget, or they might see it, but then like not read about it. And so we have to hear messages like 9-10 times before it's like drilled into our head. So it's also really important to remember that you don't have to keep switching it up. And as long as you're providing value around what you're saying, you can keep saying the same thing, because the more you say it, the more it's finally going to break through and like resonate with people.
Yeah, exactly. It's consistency. Consistency is huge when it comes to marketing yourself. Keep showing up as the same person, which I think is hugely beneficial, just to position ourselves wisely, really, because it's all positioning. We are over time. I am so happy that we've done this. We've learned so much. We have some new faces, some usual faces. So I'm just so happy all of you joined us. And there will be highlights and recaps so that we can hone in. I took a screenshot of the event that you have. So I'm going to post that in Slack so everybody sees it. We'll know to join. And yeah, let's really be our best self in our words and be our most authentic self.
And if anybody has questions, you can hit me up in the Slack channel. If you do download the Mad Libs, I would love for you to share it for sure. And you have to do it at least twice, because the first time you'll be very hesitant. So if you do it more than once, you'll be surprised to kind of see how fun it is. So awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was so fun.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Good night, everybody.